So we'll start with the, since we're doing a whole weekend retreat on the kind of the whole Lam Rim. We'll go through the entire Lam Rim based on the foundation of all good qualities and the three principal aspects of the path. Then we'll start this first session with a bit extensive prayers, the traditional prayers before our teaching event, and then later sessions we'll do shorter versions of the prayers. So Bei will lead us up to the point of the refuge and bodhicitta prayer.
Okay. Guru, teacher, Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arahat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sukhata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagawan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arahat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sukhata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagawan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arahat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sukhata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagawan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, savor to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds, thou not incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The savor having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to dustness I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any unwholesome actions, engage in perfect wholesome actions, subdue your mind thoroughly, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a defective view, a butter lamp flame, an illusion, a dewdrop, a water bubble, a dream, lightning, a cloud, see all causative phenomena like this. By these merits may transmigratory beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the enemy of faults, and be freed from the ocean of samsara, disturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. The indescribable, inconceivable, and inexpressible perfection of wisdom, unproduced, unceasing, the nature of space, object of the uniquely knowing, transcendental wisdom, to the mother of the victorious ones of the 3 times I prostrate. I prostrate to the 3 noble rare sublime ones, thus did I hear at one time, the Bhagawan was dwelling on mass of vultures mountain in Rishikesh together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagawan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth, and it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata kate kate parakate parasamkate bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that one should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you've indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I and all surrounding sentient beings take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dhamma, take refuge in the Sangha. We prostrate to the Great Mother Prajna Paramita, surrounded by her children, the assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. In dependence on my prostrations to all of you, may these words of truth be actualized. In the past, the Deva King Indra dispelled by Maras by reflecting on the profound meaning of the wisdom gone beyond and reciting the profound words in daily recitation. In that same way, I also reflect on the profound meaning of the Great Mother Prajna Paramita and recite the profound words in daily recitation. May all diseases, spirit possessions, bad conditions, all the negative directions which happen due to the past karma and immediate conditions be dispelled. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified. From the holy supreme realm of Kichara, you who possess powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, look after practitioners like a mother looks after her children. To the host of the Kinis of the three abodes, I prostrate.
Akasamara Sasadara Samaraya Tayata Gade Gade Paragade Parasamgade Bodhi Soha.
By the teachings of the Three Noble Rare Sublime Ones possessing the power of truth, may hindrances be averted, may they be eliminated, may they be pacified. May all enemies and negative forces opposed to Dharma, Shantim Kuru Soha. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be free from harmful conditions to Dharma. May all excellences be in accord with the Dharma, and may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here right now. We'll go to short mandala offering. Om Sahaji Bhagi Juk Ching Me To Tram Re Rab Ling Chi Ni De Kin Pa Di Sangye Shingdu Mekte Po Ye Dro Kyun Nam Dak Ching La Chu Par Shuk. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Perfect, pure, holy gurus from the billowing crowds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dhammakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dhamma upon the earth of those to be subdued exactly as they need. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnayatayami.
Then we'll actually go to, so I need to share a bit. Send request. Actually, we'll go to Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. And we'll do that as well. And that begins with this very prayer. Yeah, so make sure to generate positive motivation for this session. We can, if you like, you can visualize yourself surrounded by all sentient beings, with your mother of this life at your left, and then and all your female friends and family, those whom you feel supported by and close to, all the women and girls to your left and behind you, and then to your right, your father of this life or your main male caregiver, or whoever's most supportive and close to you, and then your male friends and family to your left and behind you, those whom you're most prone to become angry with, seated directly in front, facing towards you, all the other sentient beings whom we have a neutral disposition towards, seated all around us. So we're thinking to engage in this session, this retreat this weekend, in order to benefit not only ourselves but benefit countless other sentient beings who've been so kind to us from life to life, and benefit the world at large, this world, the planet Earth, and then other world systems as well. Especially, remembering how our suffering in samsara in this life, and countless past lives, and future lives, for as long as we circle through different rebirths in samsara, taking rebirth, experiencing old age, sickness, and death, again and again through the force of karma and afflictive emotions, all arises from fundamental ignorance, not understanding the situation that we're in. So in order to gain a deeper understanding of what is the condition our life is in, how to be, why we experience suffering, how to be free from suffering of this life and future lives of samsara as a whole, and also how to free others by generating empathy, compassion, loving kindness, and wisdom. Then we engage in the study, the contemplation on the graduated path to enlightenment, as expressed in these two prayers by Lama Tsongkhapa, the foundation of all good qualities and the three principal aspects of the path, which contain the essence of all the central points of the Buddhist teachings. So in order to benefit ourselves, in order to benefit others, especially by understanding and thereby taking a step towards practicing and developing all the realizations on the entire path to full enlightenment for ourselves. So in order to achieve enlightenment, so that we ourselves can be of the greatest benefit to countless other kind sentient beings. Then we go for refuge and begin with Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by my merits of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly By my merits of generosity and so forth, may God become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I go take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. And then we'll read this prayer of the four immeasurable thoughts. Measurable equanimity, love, compassion, and joy. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free from the closeness of attachment and the distance of hatred. May they abide in equanimity. I myself will cause them to abide in equanimity. Please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to achieve Buddhahood. May they achieve Buddhahood. I myself will cause them to achieve Buddhahood. Please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they be free from suffering and its causes. I myself will cause them to be free from suffering and its causes. Please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never separated from the happiness of higher rebirth and liberation. May they never be separated from these. I myself will cause them to never be separated from these. Please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do this. Everywhere may the ground be pure, free of pebbles and so forth, as level as the palm of the hand, and the nature of sapphire and soft. And then the actual practice of Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. So yeah, we imagine, if you know what, the typical depiction of Lama Tsongkhapa, you can visualize in the space in front. Basically he's a person, a man, wearing wearing the robes of a fully ordained monk, with a golden pandit's hat on top. There's a small picture of Tsongkhapa over here behind the screen, but you probably can't see. And then his right hand is in the mudra like this, the teaching mudra, and his left hand is in the mudra of meditative equipoise. So he's sitting like this. But the main thing is, if you have any connection with or understanding of Tsongkhapa, then you can visualize and imagine he's present in the space in front. And then we did this short Guru Yoga practice, which basically is a 7-limb practice. Imagine inviting him to remain, to come to the space, to remain, and then making offerings, paying homage, confession, requesting him to teach, and then dedication. From the heart of the Savior of the 100 deities of Tushita, on the peak of a cloud resembling a clump of extremely white, fresh curd, King of Dharma, omniscient Losang Drakpa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, on a lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme field of merit for my mind of faith, please abide for 100 eons to spread the teachings. Your holy mind has the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you who are meaningful to see, hear, and remember, I prostrate. Pleasing drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, lights, scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the 3 vows, that I have collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age, and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful. By abandoning the 8 worldly concerns, Savior, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfectly pure, holy Gurus, from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued, exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of perfect pure Losang Drakpa's teachings to shine forever. Since we already offered a mandala, we can skip that and then go with this prayer. May we meet the teachings of the victorious one, Lama Tsongkhapa, who had the morality of an eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of the 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kamnira Tayami. And then we'll recite Lama Tsongkhapa's name mantra a little bit with this first a purifying visualization of purifying. So imagine this from Lama Tsongkhapa in the space in front, blissful white nectar as we recite the mantra. And then it flows into the crown of your head and fills your entire body and mind, completely purifies you of any discomfort or illness or suffering of body and mind. And the same for all the other sentient beings seated around you. So as it says here, by the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect Father and Sons, and combining into one enter my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of the tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and their imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. So we'll recite the long version. There's a 9-line mixema. We'll recite it once, and then the 5-line a few times. Vajradhara, Lord of sages, source of all realizations, Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of non-objectifying compassion, Manjushri, master of stainless wisdom, Lord of secrets, destroyer of the entire host of Maras, Losondrapa, crown ornament of the sages of the land of snow. To you, Guru Buddha, embodying the 3 refuges, I make requests respectfully with my 3 doors. Please bless me and others to be ripened and liberated. Please bestow the supreme and common realizations. Please bless me to quickly become like you. Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of non-objectifying compassion, Manjushri, master of stainless wisdom, Lord of secrets, destroyer of the entire host of Maras, Tsongkhapa, crown ornament of the sages of the land of snow, Losondrapa, at your feet I make requests. So you can, if you like, you can just quietly recite those 5 lines several times and try to, and then at the end, or as you're doing, or at the end, try to visualize this white light, purifying your entire body and mind such that it becomes pure and clear like crystal. So we can recite just quietly under your breath. So finally, make sure to visualize that your body and mind have become completely purified of any obstacles, any forms of suffering and the causes of suffering. And the same for all the other sentient beings. Visualize seated around you and the environment. And then we'll end with this request. May my wisdoms of listening, reflecting, and meditating increase. May my wisdoms of explaining, debating, and composing develop. May I be granted the supreme and common realizations. Please bless me to quickly become like you. May my transcendental wisdom of simultaneously born great bliss arise. May my stains of mistakenly grasping things as real be purified. May my net of doubts that are only mind be cut off. Please bless me to quickly become like you. And then there's the foundation of all good qualities. So we'll come back to. Yeah, so with we conclude the preliminary prayers there. So this weekend we have quite a lot of time. No? We have the session this evening, and then session tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow afternoon, and then Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. So in a very relaxed way, then we can go through these two Lamrim prayers by Lama Tsongkhapa, the foundation of all good qualities, and the three principal aspects of the path. This is kind of a bit advanced Buddhism, a little bit. So you all have some basics already? Yeah? Okay. You? No? Okay. We'll just hold on. Since we're a small group, though, you can ask. Well, there's be plenty of time to ask whatever questions you have, can ask. So, but many people, I'm quite looking forward to this weekend to explaining these things because I love the the topic, the Lamrim, or Lamrim is a Tibetan term, right? Lam means path, Rim means gradual path. So it's like the graduated path to enlightenment. The idea being like, if we want to go from, like a low place, like down in the bottom of a valley up to the top of a mountain pass, like it doesn't really work just to go, if it's a steep mountainside, to go straight up, it doesn't work. So you need to make a gradual path that kind of switchbacks and gradually goes up to the height you want to get to. So the idea is that we're ordinary beings, where we take rebirth and experience, different problems in life, of course, different, happiness too, but then gradually we experience aging, sickness, and death. Then we die from this life, and then through the force of karma that we've accumulated, then we're thrown into rebirth again and again in samsara. So we live in this kind of, in a way, it's a bit powerless situation. Not that we don't have any power; we have much ability and power, but we kind of live in a state of confusion, is the Buddhist view, where especially the way we're powerless over where we take rebirth. So each time we die, we're like a leaf kind of falling from a tree, and then where it falls, the leaf has no control. It's just pulled by different forces, gravity, and pushed by the wind, and so forth. So we're in the state of an ordinary person in samsara, but we have the potential. Each of us, each sentient being, has the potential to achieve total control over every aspect of our lives. That's possible to have control over, and especially control over our birth and death, and which comes about through gaining control over our own minds. And we have the ability to subdue all disturbing, harmful destructive kind of habits of mind, thought, and emotion, and perfect every positive quality like patience and mental focus, wisdom, generosity, compassion, and so forth. So the perfection of that is Buddhahood, full enlightenment. That's like the mountaintop that we aspire to. And then the graduated path is like kind of, it's a way of organizing all the teachings that Shakyamuni Buddha gave into a path of practice for one person that we can contemplate and practice like sequentially and gradually. Yeah, so that's the idea. And that's what we'll go through. So we'll go through this whole path this weekend. So oftentimes, you know, when people are new to Buddhism, new to meditation, and then, you know, they, after learning about, you know, basic meditation, the posture, how to set up a session, how to focus on the breath, and then learn about also analytical meditation, how we can use meditation to think about different things. Then people wonder, like, well, what do I meditate on, right? And there's different, you know, there are different advices. One of the main things is to use meditation just to work with whatever problems we're facing in life at that time. But then that can be, you know, kind of all over the place, right? As our lives are all over the place generally. So, and also it's not, and also we need resources. I mean, the purpose of Buddhist practice or any religious practice in general is to take the wisdom from the tradition we're studying and then apply it to problems we're actually facing in our life. So then the question comes, well, how do I, you know, draw on the wisdom of Buddhism and use it in meditation to apply it to the struggles, the things that I'm struggling with, right? And so one of the main ways to do that, I mean, the main way to do that is to sequentially, gradually contemplate different aspects of Buddhist teachings and then see how those apply in different ways and can be used in different ways to address things that we're struggling with. So the main way to organize the Buddhist teachings as, you know, a series of topics for contemplation is the Lamrim, is the graduated path, right? So oftentimes people, you know, will have the question, once they're new to meditation, like, well, what do I meditate on every day? The answer is you meditate on the foundation of all good qualities and the three principles of the path, the topics as they're set out in this kind of prayer. So these kind of prayers, though, they're both, you know, they each have, between 15 and 20 verses, right? So you can imagine, the Buddha taught for 40 years, right? And then, so it's like and he taught, there's, 108 volumes, each like probably like 500 pages long or something if you print it in a book. So the Buddhist teachings are very vast and very extensive. And so the topics of contemplation are, you know, equally many and extensive. But these two prayers are very short, so they're very dense, right? So they're condensing a huge amount of ideas, many ideas into the essential points and into just a few words, right? So they're very rich prayers. I mean, we could spend the whole year just going through these prayers if we went through in really detail. But the beauty of them is like they're really kind of distilled the main essential points to contemplate on of the Buddhist teachings. So that's what we'll look at this weekend. So, and the way to use these prayers, the foundation is to, you can use in different ways, but the typical way to use is to recite like one of them each morning, and you can alternate, like one morning recite one and one the other, or recite one for a month and then the other for a month or whatever. Or one until you just become familiar with that and then switch and do the other one. But gradually it's good to like recite them both together. And kind of, combine the verses together, which I'll explain a little bit how to do that as we go on. But basically the idea is that we recite one of these prayers and then we spend time contemplating whichever topic, you know, within the topics that they set out, you know, begin by contemplating the first topic for, you know, a week or a month or several months until we're familiar with that and we feel like that topic kind of shifts our mind somewhat. We have some feeling for that. And then go to the next topic and then contemplate that for a while. But the purpose of, then you might think, well, if I'm only meditating on one topic each day for a while, why recite the whole prayer? It's because by reciting the entire prayer, it puts imprints in your mind of the entire path to enlightenment. So every time you recite the prayer, it's kind of, you place imprints on your mind for developing all the realizations on the path up to enlightenment. And then as as years go by and you spend time meditating on each of those topics, then, as you recite the prayer, the foundation of all good qualities or three principal aspects of the path, then each time you recite those lines, it kind of, you click into that, whatever understanding, whatever feeling for that topic you developed earlier, you bring it to mind just briefly again. And so it keeps you in touch with these very wholesome kind of insights and understanding that you've developed. And then, so that helps to not, it's like, start a plant and it growing, and then to keep giving it a little bit of water each day. It helps it keep growing, rather than just leave it and then it kind of dries out and dies. So, so it's very common practice to, as a daily meditation practice, to do prayers, like some of the prayers like we just did, and then recite a Lam Rim prayer, and then contemplate on one of the topics for, just 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever's comfortable for us, what we feel like. Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of how to use Lam Rim. Hey, we stop at 8:30 or 9? Okay. Okay, yeah. I thought so. I'm just checking also when we take a break. Yeah. So, okay. So I have a lot of different documents opened up here. I think where to start. Yeah, I've started reading there's two different commentaries. There's one, a commentary by Paul Bonker on each of these prayers. So I started reading through those. Let's see. Oh, I know what I wanted to speak about. So I'll look here. Okay. The typical way the Lam Rim is introduced when it's, yeah. So typically before we actually get into the kind of, let me blow it up a bit more. Oh, that's too big. Typically before we get into the actual topics, then we speak about in order to inspire like faith in the Lam Rim, then there's some brief description of the greatness of the author and the greatness of the teaching, and then the four qualities of the Lam Rim, of this presentation of the Buddhist teachings. So the greatness of the author speaks about, the question is like, where did this teaching come from, right? Because whenever any spiritual teaching, especially, it's kind of, it's similar to like if you're studying something in like university. In high school, we don't usually ask so much like where is this coming from? Maybe it's junior, senior year a bit more, but in college, like if you're studying, say, psychology, and something's being explained to you, then you want to know, or especially any of the sciences, especially the social sciences a bit less, but the hard sciences especially, you want to know, well, like, why should I believe this theory, or what's being presented? Why should I believe it? So in the hard sciences, especially, usually there's experiments, There's experiments, then gather data, and then there's a data set that seems to be the best explainer, seems to be, well, this theory, right? And thereby, the more data there is, like verifying what the assertions of a theory, then the more kind of that theory is more widely accepted, and the more faith we can have in that theory. Yeah. So similarly, when then because we want to know, we want to know the truth, right? It's important to know the truth. The more we have ideas that are in disharmony with the truth, then it leads to more problems, right? So in spiritual teachings, it's the same. When we're being presented with a spiritual teaching, then we want some idea, well, why should I believe what's being said? And each of the different religions has their own way of kind of providing evidence for the truth of what's being taught. So, but here in the Lam Rim, the first person to organize the Buddhist teachings in this way was Lama Atisha, who was one of the last great Indian masters the last great Indian Buddhist masters to go and teach in Tibet. So when it speaks about the greatness of the author, primarily it's speaking about Lama Atisha. So maybe just I won't say much about his life because we don't have that much time. But one indication of what a great kind of bodhisattva he was, what a very altruistic person. I mean, he was the abbot of one of the greatest. Some of the earliest universities in the world were these great Buddhist universities in ancient India, ancient Nalanda Monastery, and Vikramasila was one of the other great monasteries. So this is, these monasteries started, these monastic universities started like probably around, like 100 CE, So like now is 2025. So like 2,000 years ago. No. But Atisha lived around 1,000 CE. So about 1,000 years ago. But he was the abbot. Well, he was the abbot of Vikramasila Monastery, and he was the most renowned teacher in, by the time he's in his 50s or so, 50s, 60s. He's one of the most highly regarded and renowned Buddhist teachers in northern India. And then this request came from Tibet for him to go and teach in Tibet. And at first he refused, but then again, request was made. Some people came from Tibet and requested him to go teach. And then he checked he had a special connection with Tara, the Buddhist goddess or deity Tara. And so he checked with Tara, and Tara said it would be very beneficial if he would go to Tibet and teach, but his lifespan would be shortened by 10 years if he were to do that. But he accepted that anyway. He thought, if it would be beneficial to others, then it's okay if I live a shorter life. It's not a problem. So then he went to Tibet and then lived there for about 13 years, teaching in Tibet, and then died in Tibet. So when he first arrived in Tibet, then he was requested, because it was a king in Western Tibet who invited him to come. And so when he first arrived, they met at the border between Nepal and Tibet. And this king requested Atisha to please compose, a teaching for Tibetans who are kind of dull-minded and have a difficult time getting the main point. And so it's not easy for them to practice. So then Atisha composed the first Lam Rim prayer, the first graduated path prayer. It's called A Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So that's how this whole genre of this way of presenting the Buddhist teachings as a graduated path for one person, it arose with Atisha when he first came to Tibet. And so, so the greatness of the author is primarily speaking about the qualities of Lama Atisha and the great things he did in his life. But Atisha, by teaching in Tibet for 13 years, he became very famous, very widely renowned, and had thousands and thousands of disciples, and among them some very, very, very capable, intelligent, and people who were very dedicated to practice. And so he really started a resurgence of Buddhism in Tibet. He was one of the kind of initiators of the great kind of reform movement and resurgence of Buddhism in Tibet. And then, so there's the greatness of the author. So it was Atisha, speaking of the qualities of Atisha, and then the greatness of the Dharma to be taught. So here, the greatness of the Dharma is basically thinking about how, this presentation of the Buddha's teachings, that the Lam Rim, that it's great because, every word of the Buddha's teachings are meant to relieve the suffering of sentient beings, primarily by relieving the afflictive emotions in our mind and ignorance in our mind, the fundamental causes of suffering, reducing anger, reducing attachment, reducing arrogant pride and selfishness, and especially reducing ignorance, grasping at things being permanent or things being kind of fixed the way they are, things being inherent existence. And so there's different lineages of Buddha's teachings, but they all gather together in this Lamrim teaching. And then there's 4 qualities of, let's see, where are those? Oh yeah, here. These 4 greatnesses of the teachings. So, yeah, those are listed here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. That the Lamrim, so this Lamrim teaching, actually, I'll take it from another. There's another Lamrim prayer by Tsongkhapa where he lists these. Yeah. So here, this is another Lamrim prayer by Lama Tsongkhapa, which people also recite every morning, although it's not as common. So it's called a hymn of experience. And this text it's available for free download on FPMT's website. It's just called Lamrim Prayers. And it contains all the prayers we're going through and then several other Lamrim prayers. Yeah. Anyway, so here, where are we? Here we go. Tsongkhapa says, oh yeah, so he's speaking about, so he says, this instruction, the king of powerful jewels, so this instruction, in this Lamrim instruction, this instruction, the king of powerful jewels, fulfills all the desired aims of the 9 types of beings. 9 types of beings, just beings, all the beings in samsara. It is an ocean of glorious and excellent explanations, gathering the rivers of a 1,000 fine scriptures. So it means all the scriptures, all the Buddhist, the essence of all the Buddhist scriptures are like, just like rivers flow into the ocean, like the oceans contain the essence of all the rivers in the world. So like that, you think of, the different lineages or different aspects of Buddhist teachings, they all flow into this presentation. Through it, you can realize, so then there's these 4 qualities of the Lamrim. Through it, you can realize that all the teachings are without contradiction, understand all the scriptures as an instruction, easily find the intent of the conqueror, and be protected from the abyss of very faulty conduct. So these are 4 qualities of the Lamrim. So the first is, through it, you can realize that all the teachings are without contradiction. So Shakyamuni Buddha, he taught different groups of people at different times, during his lifetime. And he taught very different things to different groups of people according to what was most beneficial for those people. And so on the surface of it, it often looks like, Buddha told this group of people, for example, that there is a self, like there is a soul. And then another group of people, there is no soul, there is no self. Or that, one group of people, what's another one? Oh, that everything is just the mind, right? That every external thing is just an illusion. Actually, everything we perceive is just a projection of our mind. And then other group of people are told that, there is an external world. It pretty much exists just the way we see it. So the Shakyamuni Buddha taught very different things to different people at different times. So through the Lamrim, you can understand how all those things are without contradiction. It all kind of makes sense as a skillful means to guide different types of people, that it all fits together. So through it, you can realize that all the teachings are without contradiction. And then you can understand that you can understand all the scriptures as an instruction. So all the different teachings the Buddha gave, you can understand how to interpret that in a way that it's an instruction for my own personal practice, right? So, and it's really true, if you read like the Buddhist sutras, like you read the Golden Light Sutra, and then the Sangata Sutra, and then the Heart Sutra, and then, other sutras, I don't know, what's another sutra, the Diamond Cutter Sutra. Yeah. You would, imagine if that's all you had, there was no introduction to meditation, no Lamrim books, no explanations by His Holiness or Lama Zopa. You just had the sutras, you'd be completely lost about what to do, what to practice. It's very confusing, But having this understanding that from studying the Lamrim and having that understanding of the Buddha's teachings is it's like if you were to have, if you wanted to drive across country but all you had is like a few brochures that you picked up in some gas stations, or some, maybe even better is like the visitor centers, you know. You didn't have a map. Imagine you didn't have an atlas. You didn't have a proper map. You just had some like brochures of like different cities or towns or something. You'd be kind of lost, like how to get from one place to another, right? But if you have a map of the whole country, then you easily can find like how to go through all these different cities and states and towns and get to, you know, other side of the country. So like that, the Lam Rim is like a map of the entire Buddhist teachings. If you have this kind of broad outline of the Buddhist teachings, then any aspect of the Buddhist teachings you encounter, you know how to take that into your own path of practice and how to use it. So in that way, you understand all the scriptures as a personal instruction for your personal practice. And then you easily find the intention of the conqueror. So you easily discern like what is the Buddha's, the conqueror is an epithet of the Buddha, right? It means the Buddha. So you easily discern what is the main thing the Buddha's teachings, what are the most important things the Buddha's teachings, and how, and you can kind of filter that out from all the other stuff that's kind of not as important, not as central. And then, and you be protected from the abyss of very faulty conduct. So what this faulty conduct here, there's all different kinds of faulty conduct, right? But here it specifically means, what do you say? The faulty conduct of disparaging some aspects of the Buddhist teachings, of saying that, of thinking that, you know, some things the Buddha taught are less and some things are better, or some things are irrelevant and some things are useful. And you see this, I mean, you see this a little bit in the world today because, you know, as Buddhism has spread into different countries and different cultures around the world, and different aspects of Buddhist teachings are emphasized, like in the Theravada, like in Thailand, Sri Lanka, Burma, versus Japan, Korea, China, versus like Tibet and Mongolia. Then there is, and because, you know, we're humans, we all want to think we're better than anyone else. So each tradition wants to think it's better than the others. And so even within Tibetan Buddhism, there's 4 schools, you know, the Gelug, Shakya, Kagyu, Nyingma. And there's a bit of, you know, rivalry and competition. And so there's a danger that if we don't have this kind of broad understanding of the Buddhist teachings, we only hear explanation of one aspect from one lineage, then we cling to that with attachment and think, oh, this is the best, and all the others are just like not, you know, not as good, or not useful. So and that's a very heavy thing because every word the Buddha spoke is beneficial to sentient beings. So every aspect of the Buddhist teachings, as it's preserved and practiced and emphasized in all those different traditions, are equally valuable and equally precious. So to disparage any of that is quite a heavy negative thing to do. Just as similarly it is to disparage any of the major world religions or any spiritual tradition, because all the different spiritual traditions and, you know, the world religions exist because for thousands of years they've been beneficial to people in different ways. So we should, you know, similarly have respect for all of those. But yeah, so these are these 4 qualities of the Lam Rim, that you can realize how all the teachings how all Buddhist teachings are without contradiction. You can understand how to take all the scriptures as a personal instruction. You easily find the intention, the main intent of the Buddha, and you are protected from the abyss of this disparaging or discriminating against or disparaging aspects of the Buddhist teachings. Okay, any questions so far about any of that before we take a break? Remember what we've done. We started off with extensive prayers and Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga and the bodhicitta motivation. And then, then I was just explaining what Lam Rim means, path. Lam means path, Rim means graduated. So why it's a graduated path to enlightenment. It's a path leading us, a path of like contemplation of different topics, leading us from our ordinary state of suffering and samsara to the state of full enlightenment. And then how the Lam Rim is typically used in daily practice to recite, recite, and there's different Lam Rim prayers, but to recite in the morning and briefly contemplate. So as you recite, you very briefly contemplate each of the topics, and then you spend more time, 10, 20 minutes focusing on one of the topics, and then you cycle through that again and again and again, deepening your understanding. All the topics of the Lamrim, it's not like they each stand alone in isolation from the others. They're all related to each other. And that's a nice thing about the way we'll go through the entire Lamrim in quite a short time this weekend, is we can see how each of those topics are a bit connected to the others. So the way it's used in daily practice to recite and then contemplate on the topics, and then the two greatnesses of the author and the Dharma itself. I think there's three greatnesses actually. I saw that mentioned, but I don't remember the third. And then these four qualities of the Lamrim. So that's what we went over so far. Yes, Asha, you need the microphone so that Teresa and Jessica can hear you.
So there are different teachers, right? I hear Atisha, Lama Tsongkhapa, Pabonka.
Pabonka Rinpoche, yeah.
Yeah, like, is there a sequence?
Who's first and who's later?
Yeah.
First is Shakyamuni Buddha, you left out. First is Shakyamuni Buddha, and then Shakyamuni Buddha, so it's about 2,500 years ago. Then about 1,500 years after that is Atisha. So Atisha is about 1,000 years ago. And then about 600 years after Atisha, so about 400 years ago, is Tsongkhapa. And then about, you could say, 100 years ago was Pabonka. Pabonka Rinpoche was a Tibetan master. Yeah. Pabonka Rinpoche, yeah. Good memory, though, because I just barely mentioned Pabonka Rinpoche. I just mentioned I'm using two commentaries by him. Oh, you have his book? Yeah. Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. Yeah. And that's also the outlines I flashed up for a minute. I'm using the outlines are very good from that book. They're very classical Lamrim outlines, detailed. Pabonka Rinpoche lived, he died in 1956, just before His Holiness came into exile in 1959. And then, so that's those. But, the one who, Atisha, yes, he composed the first Lamrim text, but it's quite abbreviated. Lama Tsongkhapa is the one who really expanded on it and really made that kind of presentation widely known and widely used. So it's really something, and Tsongkhapa, of course, is the founder of the Gelug school. So there's four schools in Tibetan Buddhism. The Nyingma arose much before Atisha, right? Almost like 400 years before Atisha. And then there was a anti-Buddhist king in Tibet who really, persecuted the Buddhists in Tibet, and Buddhism almost died out. And then after that king had passed away and several hundred years had passed, then Atisha was invited to and came to Tibet. And then there was this big resurgence and new flourishing of Buddhism in Tibet. So then it rose to four new schools: the Sakya, Kagyu, and the Gelug, of which the Gelug's the youngest. So, but this presentation, the Lamrim, is most common and is most widespread, and in the Gelugpa school. Although it also exists in the Kagyu, there's a very similar Lamrim present. Even in the Nyingma and the Sakya also, they have similar presentations, but it's kind of the most developed and the most emphasized in the Gelugpa school. Okay, why don't we you have a question? Sure, no problem. What's your name? Kelly, okay.
The point in the prayers that kind of stood out to me was when we are saying we're praying for power and understanding, and then we're praying that everybody else has this understanding, this compassion, and then we're like, I will. I will help them. I will make them see. And that was very cool in my brain, because I feel like in my own practice, you think of the modern day Buddhist is exposed to
so much suffering of the world from the moment they turn on the radio to, social issues. And we have extended connections probably than the ancient Buddhi. That I like in my own practice, I have to tell myself, this is the power's just flowing through me. Like it's not me that's gonna save everybody, And then also so much like
How's
realizing
flowing through you in what sense?
well,
From
that the wisdom and compassion is the power, is what's helping people, and that it's everywhere, and I
yeah.
don't need to save every starfish on the sea, and I'm just a little speck on a big Buddha field. So that's so much of what's helped me that I wonder what you think about that phrase, and is there any framing or reframing that might help me? Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think let me show. I'll flash up the prayer that I think you're talking about. A long time ago. I think you're talking about the four immeasurables, the four immeasurable thoughts. That because they have that phrasing you're talking about, which is right, the first one. This one. Is this
I
okay?
myself will cause them to abide in
Exactly.
equanimity. And
Yeah, yeah.
in a sense, it almost feels like blasphemous even. It's like, oh no, I will do it. Well, no, it's the
Well,
Buddha doing it.
You're
It's
thinking in a Christian terms now.
no, so
It's
there's that.
blasphemous. Yeah, yeah.
There's that, but then there's
But
also,
that's a huge difference between the kind of Christian and most theistic worldview and the Buddhist worldview.
that
Because
could
like in
be.
Christianity, that God is up here and we can never be equal to God.
Mhm.
Like to think I could be equal to God is blasphemous, right? Whereas
Oh,
in
yeah.
Buddhism, like the highest state is a Buddha and we can be equal to that. We all have the potential for that. And that's our ideal aspiration is that. It's not, it's the best thing. It's not the worst thing. But that's what this is. Yeah. It's like, but you're right. There's a progression in each of these. And there's 4 verses, right? There's the 4 immeasurable thoughts: equanimity, and then loving kindness, and compassion, and joyfulness. And they each have this progression that you're alluding to. Is it how wonderful it would be if da 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 da. And then may it be is a bit stronger, right? First is thinking how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings da 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 da. And then may it actually be so. And then I myself will cause. That's so you see the first, how wonderful is this kind of, yeah, that would be nice. And then second is, well, may it actually come to me. Not just would it be nice, but may that actually happen. And then the third is much bigger. Like I myself will personally take responsibility for that. And then recognizing, oh, yeah, like you said, like I'm just kind of a small thing in the world. How can I do this big thing? Well, please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do this. Right? So there we're drawing forth the whatever wisdom and compassion of enlightened beings and higher beings with higher levels of realization to please help us. So we are kind of, it's like a prayer to be like a conduit of, yes, I want to help all these people and I don't know how. So those who have, more wisdom and compassion and power than me, please like channel that through me so that I can help others. So it is like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 4-part thing. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, this is another prayer. I mean, when people ask about what to practice every day, like this is very common, Start with refuge and bodhicitta, and then recite 4 immeasurables. Like it's very powerful practice. And you can spend time, meditating on each of those, and there's more, I mean, in the Lam Rim, there's more explanation of each of those attitudes: attitude of equanimity, an attitude of compassion, attitude of loving kindness, attitude of joy. So you can also, if you recite those every day, then spend a month on one or a week on one, and then go to the other. And then you develop more and more feeling of it. And then when you recite, some mornings you just recite the prayer, but you bring that feeling to mind, that kind of, it's an excellent way. I mean, this is one of my favorite, this prayer of the 4 immeasurables is one of my favorite prayers. It's so profound. It's so simple and yet so profound. And, it just gets that attitude, you can just grows deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's very, very beneficial. So yes, thank you for your comment, Kelly. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break now. Okay, let's continue. We'll go to the actual foundation of all good qualities. So if you all don't have these prayers already, I think, babe, you probably sent a link in the email. But they're both, you can download like this, these booklets from FPMT. I mean, they're each individually available, or there's this whole, I'd suggest this one actually, the whole Lamrim. There's all the Lamrim prayers in one booklet, because then you get more. But yeah, many of you probably have in your own prayer books. There's this booklet, Lamrim prayers, or just in the regular FPMT prayer book. Anyway, they're available different places for free download. So let's start. We'll start with the foundation of all good qualities. And the foundation of all good qualities, it's named after the first line. You see, the first line is the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect guru. So like there's many Tibetan prayers are named like that. The author, and this Lama Tsongkhapa is the author of this. He didn't give, a different title to the prayer. So people just call it by the first phrase of the first line. But the foundation of all good qualities, well, how are they different, right? With the three principal aspects of the path. Maybe we start. The three principal aspects of the path, it focuses on these three central attitudes that we need to develop on the Buddhist path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom, realizing emptiness. And the prayer really focuses on those three. And it doesn't have the preliminary practice of correctly relying upon a teacher, and it also doesn't have anything about Tantra at the end. Whereas the foundation of all good qualities, it more covers the entire path without so much emphasis on those three central realizations. And so it begins right from how to correctly relying upon a spiritual teacher. And then that's one feature. And then at the end, it has like 3 verses on Tantra, right? On the path of Tantra. So, in Buddhism, there's Buddha Sutra and Tantra, but the practices of Tantra are all part of the path to enlightenment. So they're part of the Lamrim. Yeah. So that's why we'll start with the foundation of all good qualities, because it includes the very first topic of contemplation, how to correctly rely upon a spiritual teacher. And that's what we'll speak about for the rest of the session today. So yeah, we'll read them. Well, maybe I should speak. I think I should say a little bit about Lama Tsongkhapa, the author of these two first. I'll show his name here somewhere. Yeah, by Geshe Tsongkhapa. There's his name. So Lama Tsongkhapa, he's the author of these two texts. And so he was a Tibetan master who lived from 1357 to 1419. Right, so during the Middle Ages in Europe. 1357 to 1419. He lived, 63 years, 62 years. And he was, he's the founder of there's 4 main schools in Tibetan Buddhism. Nyingma is the oldest. And then there's the 3 Sarma, the 3 new schools. Of those, the oldest is the Sakya, and then the Kagyu, and then the youngest is the Gelug. So whereas the Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, they're founders of those schools they were all founded by, the Nyingma was founded by 2 Indian masters from India who came to Tibet. And then the Sakya and the Kagyu were both founded by Tibetan masters who came to ancient India and studied and then brought and translated things and brought back to Tibet. Whereas Lama Tsongkhapa, by the time Lama Tsongkhapa arose, Buddhism had died out in Tibet, in India. Buddhism was not existent, basically, in northern India by that time, by 1357. Remember, Atisha came to Tibet in about 1052. So then, like 300 years later, by that time, in those 300 years, Buddhism was pretty much wiped out, largely by the Mughal emperors. They were, Muslim rulers of Tibet, partly that, and then there was also competition with Hindu kings and Hindu teachers. And so between those different forces, and then there was a lot of corruption apparently among the Buddhist monastics and so forth. So between these different forces, Buddhism died out. So Lama Tsongkhapa, of the founders of the different Tibetan schools of Buddhism, Lama Tsongkhapa is the only one who never studied in India with actually Indian Buddhist masters. So he studied and practiced in Tibet, right? So it's a very kind of Tibetan, origination of his, anyway. But although he studied in Tibet, he very much went back to the sutras and the tantras, the source texts that were spoken by Shakyamuni Buddha, and then the commentaries of the ancient Indian masters, and really strongly used those as a basis for kind of reorganizing and reinterpreting many key aspects of Buddhist teachings, and then teaching extensively. So, Lama Tsongkhapa, he read very extensively. He received teachings from over 100 different Buddhist teachers, mostly in central Tibet. And then he, while he was studying, he debated and became very famous for, as a debater in the main monastic kind of educational institutions at that time, main monasteries. And then, so even in his late 20s, 30s, he was a very famous teacher already. But then he had this kind of mystical experience where he, you can say, he was having mystical experiences, visions of different deities. Like one of the earliest deities he had a vision of was the goddess Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, when he was like 8 or 10. And then he had visions of Yamantaka when he was young, and then Atisha. He had a vision of Atisha and the 16 Arhats, all when he was very young. He was born in far eastern Tibet, in Amdo. But then at the age of 16 or 17, he walked 3 months to central Tibet to study. But in like his mid-30s, his early 30s, probably 33, 34, he met this Tibetan shepherd who from a very, Lama Tsongkhapa is his name, who from a very young age had visions of Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, who's in that prayer, in that 5-line prayer we were reciting. What is it? Avalokiteshvara, something of non-objective, treasure of non-objective fun compassion, Manjushri, master of stainless wisdom. So Manjushri. So that prayer is praying to Tsongkhapa as being the embodiment of Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and then the Lord of Secrets means Vajrapani. But anyway, when Lama Tsongkhapa was about 33, 34, he met this shepherd from eastern Tibet who was totally uneducated guy. Lama Tsongkhapa had almost no education at all. Probably was illiterate even. I'm not sure he knew how to read or write even. But from a very young age, he had visions of Manjushri and, practiced, reciting mantras and meditating and being guided by Manjushri. But he himself wasn't sure if the vision was just like hallucination and he was kind of just crazy, or if it was actually like a Buddha of wisdom appearing to him. So Manjushri told him at some point to go meet Tsongkhapa and to request Tsongkhapa for an initiation into Saraswati, the goddess that Tsongkhapa had a connection with. So Lama Tsongkhapa came to meet Tsongkhapa, and then, and Tsongkhapa heard about Lama Tsongkhapa's vision. But no, so Lama Tsongkhapa told him, like, I have these visions of Manjushri. Could you help me to check if it's a real thing or if it's just I'm just kind of hallucinating, right? So then, because Tsongkhapa's a great scholar, right? He knows all the hard questions to ask and what are all the right answers. So then Tsongkhapa told Tsongkhapa, well, ask Manjushri this, and ask Manjushri this, and then tell me the answers that he gives. And he was impressed. All the answers were perfect, right? So then Tsongkhapa started to think, maybe this guy really has direct access to Manjushri. So then Tsongkhapa started asking some of his own questions questions he had, asking Manjushri through Tsongkhapa, and then and was very impressed with the answers. So then, and then Tsongkhapa asked Lama Umapa for initiation into Manjushri, and then they started practicing together for a couple of years. And then gradually Tsongkhapa, he gradually also had direct visions of Manjushri, and then had those for the rest of his life. He could see Manjushri just like we see each other, and would ask him for advice. So Tsongkhapa had this whole mystical side to him as well. And then when he was 36, then Manjushri, that was about the time Lama Tsongkhapa first started having visions of Manjushri and being able to communicate directly with the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri. And then so he started taking guidance from Manjushri, and Manjushri told him at the age of 36, now you need to go into retreat, go into isolated retreat alone for several years, for a long time, with a select group of eight of his main students. So that time, Tsongkhapa, when he would teach, he would have 500,000 people, which is a big deal in Tibet at that time, come to his teachings. He was a very famous teacher. And so his own main teachers, when they heard him say that he was planning to go do a retreat, his own main teachers told him that would be very detrimental. So many people then would not be able to receive teaching from you. It would be very detrimental to the Dharma. Like, that's not a good idea. And then, he told Manjushri that, and Manjushri told him, you just tell those people, I know what's best for you, and they should just keep their mouths shut, basically. And so then Tsongkhapa left. It's kind of like, you're starting this huge career, a very promising career, and then you just, go to Tahiti for a couple of years or something, right? So Tsongkhapa left with the disciples, and he went and did retreat for about 3 or 4 years. I'm saying that also because some people, because Tsongkhapa was he is such an amazing intellectual person and when you read his texts, they're so they're so intense and profound and deep and like quoting from all over the place. Clearly he's a great scholar, but many people, also forget that he also had this whole mystical side to his practice, and he was also a great yogi and meditator. No, for many, and regularly during his life, he would just go into solitary retreat for 3 months or 6 months or a year at a time, all throughout his life, right till the end of his life, and had many, many incredible mystical visions. So so Lama Tsongkhapa is the author of these two. The foundation of all good qualities, I don't remember much about the history. Maybe if I have time tonight, I'll look up a bit more about the history of when and what are the situation where he wrote this. But the 3 principal aspects of the path was written, as we'll see, it's a very heartfelt advice to one of his main disciples. One of his main disciples who was with him for quite a few years, studying and practicing with him in central Tibet. And then that disciple went back home to eastern Tibet, which is like 3 months walk away, to teach and practice there. And after being home, so he'll never meet Tsongkhapa again, basically. He's very far away. Then he wrote a letter to Tsongkhapa asking for some advice. And then Tsongkhapa wrote him the 3 principal aspects of the path. It's this very heartfelt advice to this main disciple of his about how to generate the 3 main realizations on the path. Okay, so that's a bit about Lama Tsongkhapa, who composed these. And of course, Lama Tsongkhapa, the first major work he wrote. So Lama Tsongkhapa, like I was saying, he studied in central Tibet, very intensive studies from like the time he's 16 until about the time he's like 28. And then from about 28 to 35, he's teaching and become a very famous teacher. And then when he's 36, he goes into retreat, right? And then mainly does retreat until he's about 42. So at 42 is when he realized emptiness for the first time. He had, the shunyata, or emptiness, dependent arising in emptiness. So he had the first realization of emptiness at 42. And then after that, he wrote his first major work after realizing. He'd written some works before that. One major one especially, but several smaller ones. But his first major work, but those are all, they're kind of like, it's like a PhD thesis, like you've studied a lot and you're kind of writing something, but you don't really know what you're talking about exactly. Not that Tsongkhapa didn't, but his view of emptiness wasn't fully developed in that period. It was at his 42 he realized emptiness, and then all of his major works he composes after that. And of those, the first one is called the Lamrim Chemo, the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path. So the first major work he composed after realizing emptiness was, and as is tradition in Buddhism, I've spoken about before, he was requested by students to compose that. It's back here in the bookshelf behind you, and there's a series of books. It's 3 volumes. They're red on the top and red on the bottom and beige in the middle. It's this Lamrim treatise. So there's a very extensive Lamrim is that. And then later he wrote, so sometime after that, he wrote this very condensed Lamrim, Foundation of All Good Qualities. Okay, so look at the first verse. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. All right, so here, when it says him in the second line, him in the fourth line, it's not to mean that a guru has to be a man. In Tibetan, actually, there's a lot, they use very few personal particles, but in English, you can't really make a complete sentence without a subject, right? In Tibetan, the subject can just be like implied. And so they won't use a personal particle. They'll just be like a verb and an object, right? With no personal particle like I, me, you, he, she, it. So, but in English, to make a complete sentence, you have to directly name the subject of the sentence, the actor, and the personal particles for the third person are always male or female, him. So in translation, then it comes out, you have to use a personal particle, and you can only choose between him and her, and I mean, it's a good, I kind of prefer just to use sometimes him, sometimes her. You mix back. That's what a lot of authors do these days. But but it's more traditional from the past just to use the male particle as a general. But in the Tibetan here, there's nothing to indicate the guru as a man. And of course, spiritual teacher can be a man or a woman, like that. Anyway, so the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect guru. So just to explain the words of this, and then I'll speak a bit more about the main outlines of the correct and reliable one, the main outlines and the main points of contemplation for correctly relying upon a spiritual teacher. So first the words of the verse. Excuse me. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. So what it means is, it's just like, you can think like in our ordinary education, when we, in study at school, or even learning language. Like from us, when we were born, none of us knew whatever language we know how to speak now, none of us knew how to speak that, right? How did we initially learn language? From our mother and our father and other people teaching us, one word at a time. And then later we go to kindergarten and then first grade, learn about, 1 + 1 = 2, and then mathematics, and then how to, more and more complex sentence structure. And then, we learn about things until finally we graduate from college or whatever, and we know a lot. So all of that knowledge from, our very first, knowing the letters of the alphabet and numbers up to, all the things we know now, all comes about in dependence upon others, people who've taught us things, right? So that's the idea. In the spiritual path, every positive quality we develop all comes about in dependence upon others, teaching us in different ways. And among those others, especially on a spiritual path, then the main one is spiritual teachers. Of course, we learn things from our peers and from books and so forth, but none of that really compares to a qualified spiritual teacher who guides us, like personally guides us and explains, all different aspects of, the spiritual path, like in this case, Buddhism, to us. So that's what it's saying. The foundation of all good qualities. So the source of all good qualities, you can think, is the kind and perfect guru. Yonten Kungi Shigyor, Drenchen. Yeah. And then those words, the kind has specific meaning. So the foundation of all good qualities. So all of our good qualities of generosity, of wisdom, of kindness, come from, others. Like if we don't have like parents who are very generous, then it's difficult for us to learn how to be generous. If we don't have parents who are very loving and kind, it's more difficult for us to be loving and kind. If we don't have parents who are, or know people when we're young, grandparents or aunts and uncles or other people, we can see like when we're young, all we know is kind of our nuclear family. We're very young, no? And then gradually we go to friends' houses and then go to school and get to know other people. But like we're really shaped by the role models that we have, right? Different role models that we have. So the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect guru. So kind meaning generally the guru is kind to us in three different ways. They give us explanations, and then they also give like transmissions. There's like actual like sutras that the Buddha taught, like the Diamond Cutter Sutra, that the Buddha, spoke that, and then there was someone there who heard that, and then they spoke to someone, they recited that to someone else and explained it to someone else, and so on in an unbroken transmission down to now, right? And that's very important in Buddhism, is this oral lineage, an oral transmission that's in an unbroken line. Because the idea is that, when the Buddha or another Buddhist master out of the kind of the energy of the positive or enlightened energy of their realization, they speak something, then the people who actually hear that, who are actually present and hear that, there's a special blessing that they receive. And then when those people speak that to someone else, there's a special blessing that goes with that, right, from the source. And so, yeah, that's been considered very important in Buddhism from the time of Shakyamuni Buddha until now. So there's still transmissions of teachings that come from Buddha and then other later Buddhist masters. So one kindness of a guru is that they themselves have, studied extensively, so they've received many of those transmissions, and then they can pass it on to us. So they pass on explanation. They also pass on this kind of oral transmission, and then they can also give vows. They bestow vows because they themselves hold different vows, and then they can pass them on to us. So that's what the foundation of all qualities is the kind and perfect guru. Perfect here basically means they practice pure morality, right? That they practice not killing, not stealing, not lying, not engaging in sexual conduct, not taking toxic and so forth. So they practice not harming other sentient beings and rather, using their life in a way to benefit others. So that's what perfect means. The foundation of all qualities is the kind and perfect guru. Correct devotion to him or her is the root of the path. So this is the main thing. Correctly devoting to the guru is the root of the path. So here the analogy used, root of the path, you might wonder, like, paths don't have roots? What are you talking about? Right? Trees have roots, right? But the analogy is like a tree. You think, or a foundation of a building, right? This word in Tibetan, yeah, it is root, but in Tibetan it can also apply to like the foundation of a building. So the idea is like if a root, a tree, like the limbs and the leaves, the flowers, the fruit, the trunk of a tree, all of those things are only as stable as the roots. If the roots are not stable, none of the other things are very stable. They're all kind of, it's about to fall down and kind of get crushed at any moment. But if the roots are very kind of broad and stable, then all the other parts like flourish, right? And also, even we can elaborate a bit more on the analogy. If the roots are like healthy, not only they're stable, but they're healthy. Like they're able to absorb nutrients from the ground around them. Then those nutrients flow to all the leaves and the branches, and the tree flourishes. Even if the roots are there, but they're not absorbing nutrients, then the tree won't flourish. It'll wither and die. So it's like this is saying correct devotion to the guru, is the root of the spiritual path. Like our own spiritual development, our own spiritual path will flourish if the roots are stable and healthy. And here, what are the roots? means we relate correctly to those who teach us, right? Those from whom we learn, both our peers, but especially our teachers, that by correctly devoting ourselves to them. So here, devoting ourselves to them doesn't mean like making ourselves like a kind of just obedient slave or something to them, but it means like by seeing them in a wholesome way and appreciating them, having gratitude and appreciation for what we receive from them, and seeing them through that lens of how they benefit us, and not seeing them through a lens of just an ordinary person who has a lot of flaws, right, and faults. And we'll come back to why that is. But so this is the idea that a spiritual teacher is the root of the path, because we initially learn like aspects of the spiritual path from our spiritual teacher. And I mean, who we decide to see as our spiritual teacher is entirely up to us. Like, how does someone become your teacher? Then there's three different ways. The main way is that you decide, oh, I'm going to take them as a teacher. I want to see them as a role model, as my teacher. And so you decide. There are other two ways where, and this is a bit unique to the Tibetan tradition, but if you take vows from someone, if you take refuge vows or bodhisattva vows, if you take vows from someone, then they become your teacher. Also, if you take like a more formal teaching, like an initiation or an oral transmission, you request from them and they give you, then the teacher-student relationship is developed, right? But in short, like, it's not something that anyone can force you into, right? And if you get a sense that some Buddhist teacher is trying to like kind of force you into a student-disciple relationship, run away. No, that's a big sign of not a valid teacher, not a qualified teacher. Any qualified teacher should not be pressuring anyone to be their student, right? Yeah. So correct devotion to the teacher is the root of the path. So I hope that that's making sense, that by seeing the teacher in a wholesome way, and maybe I need to elaborate on it a bit more. Like, what does this correct devotion mean? Actually, I'll elaborate on that a lot more. But the main point is that, like, and I think to me it makes, I mean, when I look at my own experience, of learning things through just school, ordinary going to school, like I can see when, especially when I was a teenager, when I was in junior high school and high school, in college you become a bit more forgiving. But like in high school, when you're a teenager, at least when I was, then like if I had a teacher that I really liked, I kind of admired, I felt like they really know what they're talking about and they're kind of skillful the way they deal with the students, then I could learn a lot from them. But on the other hand, if as a teacher, I felt like they don't really know what they're talking about, they don't really deal with the students very well, they don't really like the students even, then the mind kind of becomes negative towards them. And then it's very difficult to learn anything from them. Everything you hear is kind of polluted by one's own negative view of the teacher. Even when they say something that might be really true and helpful and good, because my view is already polluted of them, then everything they say is kind of polluted by that, and I don't really benefit from it. I can see that in my own experience. I don't know, do you all have that kind of experience too? Okay, well, anyway, it's a mixed bag, but that's the idea it's talking about here, is like that if in order to benefit, like by receiving understanding of the Buddha's teachings, right, and the Buddhist path, then there are people who know more about that and have more experience about that than us, who are willing to teach us. But if we just find faults in them because we have a problem with authority or whatever, then we won't be able to benefit from that, even though they could benefit us. But if we see them in a pure way, if we look for the positive in them, the way they've helped us, the good things that they do, the way they have more experience or more knowledge or some more qualities than us in certain ways. It doesn't have to be about everything, but in the certain things that we want to know about, and we see them in a pure way, essentially, then our heart and our mind remains open to them and remains receptive to what we can learn from them. But even we've received some benefit, but then for some other reasons we find fault. Like we say, oh, but they don't smell good, or the way they eat is so sloppy, or, you know, their English is so bad, or whatever. You know, we can all find faults in anybody, right? Then the more we find faults, the more we close our mind off to learning anything from them. And then if you know, each person who has the ability to teach us the spiritual path, we find faults in them and then close our mind off to them, then we cut ourselves off from the Buddha's teachings, right? And from the whole path to liberation and enlightenment, which is a huge harm to us, right? So, yeah. So that's one way of looking at why it's important to correctly devote to the teacher, which means to see them in a pure way. Another way of looking at it, which is completely different, I mean, it's related, but it's very different, is because we ourselves have the potential for full enlightenment. You know, although we make mistakes, we have a lot of faults and you know, limitations now, that's true. But in the Buddhist view, our nature is pure because the nature of the mind is just pure and knowing. And so our minds have infinite potential for knowing, infinite potential for loving and kindness, and infinite energy to work to benefit beings, right? And so we each have the Buddha potential. We each have the potential to become fully enlightened. And one of the biggest obstacles to developing that potential is our own low self-esteem, is our own negative view of ourselves, is thinking of ourselves as a limited, fundamentally flawed, kind of ignorant person, right? The more we think of ourselves like that, the more we hinder our ability to grow in a positive way. The more we think of ourselves in a negative way, the more we limit and undermine our ability to grow in a positive way. And so another part of the guru devotion is, okay, maybe it's difficult to see ourselves in a very positive way because we know all the bad stuff we do, right? We can't deny that. But we can, so how do we start developing this pure view of a person in general? Start with the person who's teaching us. Start with the person who's teaching us the Buddhist path. We practice seeing them in a pure way. Even though there might be flaws about them, we just try to overlook those and look at only the positive in them. And then by learning to do that in relation to them, indirectly we're learning to do that in relation to ourselves and in relation to all sentient beings. And yeah, so that's also a big part of the guru devotion. And this kind of training and developing a pure view of others and a pure view of ourselves really comes from Tantra. This is really not found in the sutra aspect of the Buddhist teachings. It's found in the Tantra aspect of the Buddhist teachings, which is only, I mean, among the different Buddhist kind of traditions alive in the world now, you know, the Theravada tradition in like Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, and then the Chinese Buddhist tradition in like China, Korea, Japan, and then you can say the Sanskrit tradition as it's upheld in the Tibetan tradition. It's only in the Tibetan tradition that you find the kind of full breadth of teachings on Buddhist teachings on Tantra, right? It's a little bit in the Chinese tradition, almost not at all in the Theravada tradition, but like extensive in the Tibetan tradition, and in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it's like considered the highest kind of pinnacle of the Buddhist teachings, and it's very influential in all aspects of Tibetan Buddhism. And so you see it right here in the very first verse of this presentation of the entirety of the Buddhist teachings. Although it's not saying anything explicitly about Tantra, but this way of this practice of relying upon the guru and seeing them in a very pure way, it's not exclusive to Tantra. You find a bit in Theravada and a bit in the Sutra, but it's like the central practice in Tantra, right? So this is really connecting with Tantra like right from the beginning. And this whole thing of learning to see ourselves in a pure way is really like the essence of Tantra, right? And learning to do that by seeing someone else in a pure way is also connected to that. So the foundation of all good qualities is a kind and perfect guru, correct devotion to him, which essentially means there's correct devotion in thought and correct devotion in action, or behavior. Correct devotion and thought primarily means seeing one's teacher in a pure way, which the extreme of that means seeing them as a Buddha. And what we really, should aspire to do is to see them as an embodiment of a Buddha, as like, one way to see them is as like a representative of the Buddha, like an ambassador is representative of the country. They're not that country, but they represent that country. So one way to see your teacher is like, and this is more common in like the Theravada tradition, is to see your teacher as a representative of Shakyamuni Buddha, as a representative of all the Buddhas, and so to treat them with the same respect and the same, basically the same respect as you would the Buddha. And then beyond that is to see them as being the Buddha, as actually being a Buddha appearing in ordinary form. And then typically that's mainly what it's talking about, is to try to generate this view that my teacher actually is a Buddha, but they're appearing in this ordinary form. But this is one of the most difficult things. It's one of the most difficult realizations to develop on the path. It's not easy. And Tsongkhapa alludes to that when he says, correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort. That's why he says, applying great effort. Because it takes great effort to see your teacher in a pure way, to see them as a Buddha. It helps to not be too close to them all the time, right? To have a little distance. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon them with great respect. We're just about out of time. So if there's any, I'll speak a bit more about this tomorrow morning. But if there's any questions now, then I can try to clear up. There should be a lot of questions about guru devotion. There's all kinds of questions. Yes.
Well, yeah, from the first line, kind and perfect. It's like, oh, okay, I'm out.
I'm out. You want to be a teacher?
Well, it seems to be like that's what you're inspired. Yeah, I teach yoga, so it's, you have that like sense of being a teacher, but like, and then you have to like give yourself, not always.
No. Well,
No,
always
I'm
is
like the
always is
wrathful
big
deity.
demand. Yeah. But you try. No?
Yeah. So, but like, there's this like contradiction in seeing yourself as a good person inherently, but knowing you're of the world and having addictions, but not pushing those addictions under the rug because, oh no, I'm a good person. I can have,
We'll talk about more tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow we'll talk about those 10 qualities that a teacher should have. Mm-hmm. If they don't have 10, they should have at least half. If they don't have half, they should at least know more about what they're teaching than their students. Mm-hmm. And be more concerned about the welfare of their students than benefiting themselves somehow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And have pure morality. But we'll come to that tomorrow. We'll just discuss tomorrow the qualities of a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Teresa, Jessica, no questions? Then we'll conclude. Okay. Anyway, there's plenty more time tomorrow. Yeah, so tomorrow we'll look at the qualities of a teacher and then a bit more about the reasons for seeing the teacher as a Buddha. And then some general things about guru devotion. Anyway, let's dedicate so we can rejoice in whatever effort oneself has made, all the others and the participants in the retreat have made. And then rejoice in all the positive things people do in the world, from ordinary beings like ourselves up to fully enlightened beings, appearing in countless different forms. I always think, when I'm at this point of the dedication, I always think, it's because of a negativity bias, in different ways. We hear about so much negative things happening in the world, but, so few positive things. But it's not that there aren't countless positive things happening in the world. Actually, there's many, many, many more positive things that people do in the world, but because those are the norm, then they're not in the news, right? It's the exceptions that are in the news. So, but so often we end up spending more time thinking about the exceptions, the terrible things that become like headlines, than the good things. So I think when we, it's really important for, I think, for our mental health to spend, just a few minutes thinking about all the good things that people do. It helps kind of balance out, right the ship and balance out our view of, of humanity, of people. So it's, and we create merit by rejoicing all the virtuous things countless people around the world do. So all this positive energy gathered together, then we dedicate, especially that we ourselves generate all the realizations on the path to enlightenment, that the Buddhist teachings flourish, especially all the lineages of teachings upheld by the Tibetan community. That Tibet have be free again, be free from the oppression by the Communist Chinese government. That all the wishes of His Holiness Dalai Lama be fulfilled. That this Dharma Center, Ocean of Compassion, be free of every obstacle and have every conducive condition for offering programs that are beneficial to sentient beings. And then, all the wars in the world and violence and oppression are quickly come to an end. All those who are sick be healed. All those hungry and naked be clothed and fed. In short, may every sentient being, all of our brothers and sisters, be free from every form of suffering and the cause of suffering, and have every form of well-being and happiness and the causes of those. And bring to mind any other personal dedications or prayers you'd like to make. Especially all those who've died recently, may they take a precious human rebirth or rebirth in a pure land. And especially Dave, who's connected to the center, had surgery recently, may quickly recover from surgery. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow, and that born have no decline, but increase more and more. Okay, thank you all, and hope to see you tomorrow.